Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, we're back once again at the corner of truth and courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. I want to continue on some of the things we were talking about yesterday. Sadly, 15 minutes of a broadcast doesn't get you the time to cover all the things that you want to get into. But yesterday we were talking about the 1-year anniversary of the attack of Hamas on Israel. We kind of went into some of the background of why that happened, but most extraordinary, what did not happen. And what did not happen was the Arabs. The Arabs stayed home. They weren't triggered. When Israel went into Gaza, that would have been a tripwire. That would have been the thing that would have sent Egypt in, and Saudi Arabia, and Syria, and Lebanon, and Jordan, and everyone else to destroy Israel. But they stayed home. All the Arabs stayed home. And we talked about why yesterday. If you missed it, you need to catch it. You can always listen to our broadcast on our website, fortressoffaith.com. Fortressoffaith.com. We're also available on Spotify. So if you have Spotify an account there, you can always listen to our programs there on your phone, in your car, at your own time. And so basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that Israel did not start this war. Israel is not the foreign occupier. They are not the aggressor. They were the victim. Sadly, the media is not telling you that. The world, market out there, and the UN, they're not going to tell you it that way. Always Israel is put forward as the aggressor, as the foreign occupier of their own ancestral land. Isn't that ridiculous? But they do it. Why? Because of the Quran. The Quran teaches that it was Ishmael that was the rightful owner of the blessing of God, that he was the one who was to get the land, not Isaac. Isaac is the second born. In the Quran, Abram takes his son Ishmael to be sacrificed. He is always the favored son. He is always the son that is blessed. And so in the minds of the Arabs and the minds of Muslims who have a large control of the United Nations, this is why the international community is always blasting Israel. But what I want to share with you here today is why Israel is winning. And they're winning this battle. They haven't won. It's not going to be a successful win for some time, and I'm not sure exactly how it will fully end up. But currently, Israel has been on top. They've done some huge, amazing things. I want to go through some of the top things of operations that Israel was able to pull off in an amazing way. One goes back to February. We call this Operation Golden Hand. There were hostages that were taken into Gaza. And they've been held in many different places in the underground places or in apartments and stuff. But Israel gained intelligence of where 2 of their hostages were being held in Rafah. Now, Rafah is way down in the south. And so in the dead of night, 123 IDF soldiers in a stealth covert successfully made their way in 10 miles in at night. They made their way into the buildings, up to the second floor, and was able to repatriate 2 of their hostages. It took a huge number of soldiers because of the great number of Hamas soldiers that were in that area. So they had to kind of climb right amongst the middle of them, and they successfully did it. And when the operation actually unfolded, after they arrived there, of course, that's when all the shooting and gunfights started. And none of the soldiers were injured, and 2 of the hostages were repatriated to their homeland. Then in June, another mission to bring in 4 of their hostages. They learned their locations, but this was going to be a tricky one because they were in 2 different locations, and they had to hit these locations at the exact same time. because had they triggered one, the other group of hostages might be killed. And so they had to enter at the same time. However, things didn't go as well as the first mission. Their cover was blown early, and so firefights started earlier. But still, they managed to get to their targets and free all 4 of their hostages. And in the retreat back, they got them into a car, but the car broke down. And so then they had to, they were forced to hide out in a house. And Hamas began to swarm them. And this is when the Israeli Air Force came down and what they called the wall of fire. They provided a wall of fire, a corridor, for them to safely evacuate and make their way back to Israel. And all 4 were rescued, but sadly, they did lose one of their soldiers. Then on July 22nd, we call this the fatal phone call. July 22nd, Hezbollah had been firing rockets over into Israel since the beginning of this war. Over 8,000 rockets have they indiscriminately thrown on the citizens of Israel. And one of these rockets killed 12 children playing soccer in the Golan Heights. These were Druze, Israeli Druze. And so Israel had to respond, and this is how they did it. And so the response was to target one of Hezbollah's main leaders, a notorious terrorist, one that the United States had been after for 40 years. He was responsible for killing over 241 Americans back in the 80s. And they tracked him. They knew of his location because they've been tracking Hezbollah for some time now. We're going to see more evidence of that in a moment. And he was located, though, in the wrong place of the building. And so they placed a call to his cell phone, sent him the message that he would have gotten from his own operative saying, you're in danger, you need to flee, and flee to your safe house there. And so he went up from the basement, from his office up to his bedroom there, and that's where the airstrike took him out. And they call that the fatal phone call. What an amazing operation. This was the death of Al-Fuqra. Again, one of the great named terrorists of Hezbollah. And this was the start of the attrition of the leadership of Hezbollah. From this point on, you're going to see like a domino effect. A great number of them begin to fall. But before we attend to Hezbollah, we return back to Hamas. Well, the leader of Hamas doesn't even live in the Gaza area. He's been living outside of Israel, over in Qatar. And he travels freely, and amongst Iran and so on there. And so Israel had been looking to take him out for some time. Ismail Haniyeh was a guest of Iran, celebrating the inauguration of their new president. He stays usually at the guest house controlled by the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And they had planted a bomb there in his apartment 4 months earlier. They were going to take him out at the funeral of Iran's former president, but there was too many other people that would have been killed at that time, so Mossad, Israel, waited for him to return. And he did at the inauguration of the new president, and that's when they took him out. It gave a huge blow to Iran's security, knowing that there are moles within their own group in the IRGC, and sending a clearing message that Israel can hit their target no matter where they are, even in the heart of Iran, in the heart of the enemy. And another operation is Deep Layers. Of course, now Israel's been targeted by Hezbollah for some time. They've been bombing and trying to take out their munitions and their leaders. But they also have to figure out, how do we stop more munitions coming in, especially their smart missiles. And Iran has been manufacturing them in Syria. Of course, through the intelligence of Israel and their amazing abilities that all of us just marvel about, they found the location of one of these areas there, and they're deeply embedded in the ground so that they're protected from an airstrike. It's too deep for an airstrike to take them out, and it's needing a ground force to go and do it. Well, that's what happened early September. Helicopters successfully flew into hundreds of miles into Syria without being noticed there. Then they took out the air defense in that area there, and the special forces repelled from the helicopters. And within an hour, they had gathered valuable intelligence inside there and blew up the facility from inside. Folks, you just can't make this stuff up. And then the most fascinating operation that Israel was able to pull off, other than the pinpointing of killing of one of their main leaders in the headquarters in the capital city of Iran, if that wasn't enough, the beeper bombs. Years ago, Israel set up these dummy communication companies in various nations, thinking and naming that one day Hezbollah and their terrorists, their enemies, will come to these organizations seeking advice and help in stealth communications, and they did. They went to them not knowing they were dealing with Israel. And they ordered over 5,000 of these pagers, these beepers, and not knowing they were packed with tracking devices from Israel and explosives. And they were distributed to the higher echelons of the command of Hezbollah. And on September 17th, at the same time, all of them went off. And in seconds, over 2,000 militants were taken out of service. And Israel's thinking ahead. What are they going to do after they go to this? We've kind of given them the idea they can't go to their cell phones because we can track them there. So they're going to stay to low tech. So if their beepers go off, what are they going to use next? They're going to use walkie-talkies. So they also supplied them with walkie-talkies with bigger explosives. And on the next day, hundreds of them blew up, creating another wave. And total, over 3,000 of their operatives were injured and 30 dead. And then, finally, probably the top of it all was the taking out of Nasrallah, the chief high command leader of Hezbollah. If they can't talk together on communication devices, then they're going to be forced to meet together, and they did. And Israel waited for them all to get together. And in one strike, not only did they take out the main leader of Hezbollah, but pretty much all of the command structure of Hezbollah. They dropped over 80 bombs on that location to make sure that none came out alive. And I want to say, we do not rejoice in the death of anyone, especially Muslims or Jews, because they all still have rejected Jesus as their Savior. The Jews, when they die, they have rejected Jesus as their Messiah. They've rejected Jesus in his death and burial and resurrection, just like the Muslims have. And it means that when they perish, that they do not find heaven. So we do not rejoice over the death of anyone. But I do rejoice in the victories of Israel, that they're able to win against their enemies. And I hope and pray that this war will come to an end, that the people of Lebanon, the Palestinians there in Gaza will say, we've had enough of it. These terrorist groups have caused our pain. They're using us as shields. And I hope they rise up. The Lebanon government would rise up and say, we cannot have these people in our country. And then they bring the war to an end. I'm praying to that end. I hope you'll join me in that. Well, that's it for today. We'll be back again tomorrow at the corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.